Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. It's just great to be here tonight to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. We've been talking about this text, The Foundation of All Good Qualities, for so long, for so many years, and it just blows my mind over and over again to be able to see how concisely Lama Tsongkhapa in 14 stanzas was able to take everything that Buddha Shakyamuni ever taught about going from a place where I'm at, a very ordinary person with a lot of defilements, with afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, to the state of full perfection. And what a genius Lama Tsongkhapa was to be able to be so concise and also write the larger works that allow us to see what the meaning of each of those 14 stanzas really is. And so just really rejoice in this opportunity that we have. Take a few deep breaths and try to set the proper motivation. This is a Mahayana teaching, and because it's a Mahayana teaching, we should try the best we can in a contrived way, even if we need 1,000 reasons to convince ourselves it makes sense. And if it's not spontaneous, try to develop the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta, as it says in Lord Maitreya's Abhisama Alamkara, to seek the highest enlightenment, to seek Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. The highest enlightenment is Buddhahood. This is the highest state that we can achieve, the ultimate state of perfection, where we have perfected not only all of our needs, but we also have become the most reliable guide in the universe and have fulfilled all sentient beings' needs simultaneously when we achieve that enlightened state. And bodhicitta is the desire to achieve that state of perfect love, perfect power, and perfect wisdom that knows exactly how to help sentient beings and does so while abiding in a state that's free from suffering and has the highest amount of bliss or happiness that one can achieve. So it's really amazing that we have the opportunity to learn how to enter into that gateway, enter into the Mahayana, which is the only road that takes a vehicle, takes someone like me all the way to the highest state of enlightenment. That enlightenment that Lord Maitreya says is the goal within the actual motivation of bodhicitta, the goal of becoming a Buddha. And the reason for this goal is to be able to benefit all sentient beings. And we find this explanation in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, with kind of the explanation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment and showing us these two facets, which is the actual thing that's attained, which is Buddhahood, the thing you're seeking, and the reason for seeking it. Buddhahood for the sake of others, for the benefit of others. This is the reason that you're seeking this state. Once you get to the point where you generate bodhicitta, now someone like me wants the highest amount of happiness for myself and wants freedom from suffering, and I'm thinking about others. But a bodhisattva, and then obviously the Buddha, is doing everything that they're doing for others' sake. And by doing so, this allows him or her to experience the highest amount of happiness possible in the long run once one achieves Buddhahood. And there's no other way to do it. And these classes are for the purpose of convincing ourselves of this, not brainwashing ourselves, using logic and reason, not repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until you're indoctrinated. It's repeating things that are logical reasons that allow us to discover that this makes sense for ourselves without having to say, oh, he says it makes sense, so it must make sense. We have to discover that it makes sense for ourselves. So we've been going through these texts and looking at the various aspects of the mind that aspires to enlightenment and the benefits and the causes and everything about it. in order for us to kind of first and foremost see if it makes sense to us and see if it's something that we'd like to have, if we'd like to have this mind that aspires to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And then if we'd like to have such a thing, how would we go about getting it? And this is where Lord Maitreya's instruction to Arya Sangha, called the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, that trickles down to us through the extensive deeds lineage, comes into play. And then the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, passed down, both of these practices, of course, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni, then to Lord Maitreya and Arya Asanga and the extensive deeds lineage. But then in the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, we say this is passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Nagarjuna, and then down to, I'm sorry, through Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri, Arya Nagarjuna, and then down through Bodhisattva Shantideva and all the other enlightened masters to us. So this is the means. These are the causal steps that are necessary for us to achieve what we eventually decide makes sense for us to want to achieve. And as we know, and as we're going to look at more tonight, the way we decide that this makes sense for us to want to achieve, it makes sense in our minds, is by evaluating our current state, and seeing exactly what we endure, what we will endure, what we have endured. And then we can apply that same thing to others, starting with the ones that we love more than anything in this world, and then start to develop an attitude that knows not only one's own current state and wants to get out of it, but then recognizes others' current state and wants them to get out of it. And as we study these methods within bodhicitta, that idea of who we want to be free from the sufferings that we have expands more and more and more as we learn to relate not only to those who are close to us in a very close fashion, but also those who are strangers and those who are difficult people in the exact same way eventually. We will have the same feeling of closeness to someone who is difficult in our lives as we do to somebody who cares for us, in terms of our willingness to want them to be happy, and be free from suffering, and our willingness to actually say in our minds, we're going to do something about it. So we're so fortunate that we have all of these facts that are placed out in front of us. They're facts that, as the Buddha said, we should, as if we were, someone buying gold in a market full of folks who are selling some real gold and some fake gold, we would check it out and make sure that it's real gold. We'd rub it and cut it, make sure it's not full of sand. And this is what we should do with the teachings. We shouldn't just have blind faith. We should look at the facts that are presented in front of us in these amazing texts from these amazing teachers that trickle down from Buddha Shakyamuni, as I've said, and look at them and see if the facts that the Buddha is stating make logical sense first and foremost. Not, do they sound nice? Do they sound like that'd be cool? No, we're looking to see if it makes sense logically. And the only way that we can do that is have some extensive learning that gives us material to look at and analyze and say, hey, this makes sense to me logically. I heard this stuff, and now I've got this information, and I've read this stuff, and the information that I heard and the information that I read seems to match up. Now, okay, so this is what I'm reading and what I'm hearing the teacher say seems to match up, but I still don't even know if it makes sense to me, really. I don't even know if it's something that I want or something I want to continue to practice. And that's where the analysis and the cutting and the rubbing comes into play. I'm explaining this practices of equanimity and the practice of recognizing sentient beings as our mother and remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, the extraordinary attitude or altruism, and bodhicitta. But while we're explaining each of these steps, we're not just saying, hey, just you have to believe all sentient beings, we're your mother. No, we're saying in the Pramanavartika Karika, there's this logical reasoning to prove past lives. And then when we start to look at our previous lives and mathematically all of the potentialities, it starts to make more and more sense and become more and more feasible that, hey, everyone in the universe at some point in time or another, if I can't establish a beginning to this continuum of my mind, and I'm saying it's beginningless, then there's a pretty good chance that there's some logical feasibility here that all sentient beings have had a relationship of kindness to me in one form or another, many times over and over and over again in kind of duplicate roles with different levels maybe of kindness shared. So we aren't, the Buddha is never asking anybody to just believe these things. The Buddha is asking us to just be open-minded, be intelligent about it, and actually move forward, put some effort in. This is what the Buddha is asking of us. These are the qualities of the student, according to Aryadeva's 400 verses, that, we have to come here open-minded, meaning we've got to get the material into our ears. If we're just, we have those, a pot that's upside down and we're not listening, we compare it to, or a pot that's right side up with a hole in it that's leaking, if we're just forgetting everything that's said, or if we have a pot with a bunch of poison in it, like preconceived notions, we're not the kind of vessel that is the best kind of vessel for gathering this information up to analyze. So it's super important that we come to the teaching with an open mind that's not corrupted in that third pot way, that's kind of got some poison in it or contamination, that's saying, well, compared to, and then someone else said this and someone else said that, and this person says that, and my Hindu teacher says this, and trying to contradict what's going on before you've actually analyzed it. It's like you're not doing, and I in the past have found myself not doing the process correctly. We're supposed to hear and then analyze. And if we're coming in with preconceived notions, we're actually going up against what the teacher's saying the whole time with our ideas, which may or may not be better or worse. And there's no way to really know until we're quietly analyzing the right information, because as we're thinking, we're missing all of the information that's coming at us as we're saying, oh, I thought it was different than that. I thought it was different than that. It's a whole sentence that the teacher said that might have clarified it in a way that makes it make sense for you. And you leave with a doubt that wasn't even necessary because you didn't hear the rest of the points. You weren't listening really in the way that the Lamrim tradition says we need to listen. And the great teachers say that we need to listen. When we look across all of the texts, we look at Acharya Kamalashila's Stages of Meditation, that's quoted quite a bit in the section that we're in, and we'll see that first you have to have this extensive learning. Umsala Geshe Aga is teaching us this precious text right now, and it's just saying this over and over and over again in all these different ways, that you have to have this extensive learning and then engage in extensive analysis, and then go into meditation. This wisdom arisen from hearing, the wisdom arisen from contemplation or analysis, and then the wisdom arisen from actual meditation. So it needs to go in that order so that you have the correct information that's not polluted to analyze, because our mind is really tricky. We can get the wrong information, or half of it, and then add our half to it, and then engage in analysis and make it our own, and actually distort it completely, and then meditate on something that actually won't work at all. So our learning needs to be really, really clean and thorough and consistent. And this is why I personally choose to take so many classes and have continued since the mid 90s to take classes over and over and over again about this, because I see the benefits, and I see how tricky my mind is. I see how quickly my mind is willing to turn something just enough that there's still, if it's in terms of meditating upon emptiness, the nature of reality, if I turn it just enough, and we look at Sachin Konga Nimpo's precious parting from the four attachments, and we see if there is grasping, you don't have the view. That means if I turn it just a tiniest bit, a millionth of a turn, I don't have the view. And if I don't have the view, I can't cut the root of cyclic existence. And I'm actually just doing stuff that's going to create more cyclic existence. And it's really hard for a mind like mine to hear that I've got to get this so right that this wisdom, it may leave something in my mind down the road that I can then connect with the right thing again. But I know enough about karma to know that connecting with a basis to connect with the right thing again, that is so, so hard. When we look at the causes for getting this human basis, how difficult they are, we have to have this perfect ethics, this really clean ethics. We have to have the other practice of the perfections. We have to be generous and patient and make effort and meditation and have some wisdom. We have to make flawless, stainless prayers in order to achieve this human basis. So we previously did this and somehow created this very, very rare circumstance that we have now, which is this human basis. And then add on this very, very rare situation that we have where we have the Dharma in our lives. And we have these texts which can show us logically what's flawed within our minds. So if we don't take advantage of this now, if we wait or we say next week or next year, or I'm not feeling so good now, but when I'm feeling better, I'll do it. And I know with my back and with so many things throughout my life, it's very easy to kind of just put off what is the only thing that'll get us to what we really want. And it's part of our self-grasping ignorance and our self-cherishing attitude, just manifesting fully. And we know since beginningless time, this self-cherishing attitude that we have has made us make all of the wrong moves for the goals that we have, has made us do everything that won't make us have happiness in the long run, and made us do everything that will make us have suffering in the long run. This obsession with ourselves, this attachment to ourselves, this inability to see anywhere outside of ourselves unless it in some way benefits us, unless it some way makes us feel good about ourselves, that then it's, we can engage in something and then, take the pats on the back for doing something outside of ourselves. But we're feeling good about doing it and we're getting the pats on the back. Sometimes it's just all about that very small world of self-cherishing that we create for ourselves that's disguising itself as something that it's not. The self-grasping ignorance is something that is, so subtle. But the self-cherishing attitude can also be very sneaky as well. It can be so sneaky. I was speaking with a good friend of mine last week and saying there was a stage in my life where outwardly I was doing a lot of physical, social work type looking activities. I was doing, helping what it looked like. I mean, I was helping people. Yes, I was helping people. But what was going on in my mind, I really questioned the pride, the superiority of me helping someone lower, this idea that we all have. When there's someone below us, we have pride. There's someone above us, we have this little feeling of jealousy, it says in the text. And then when someone's at our level, we want to be competitive. These are all just natural traits that we wear down as we practice, hopefully. Hopefully we wear them down. And I can say that I've made them a little smaller and they're not as ugly and noticeable in my mind, because I think if they were as loud as they had been, knowing what I know, I might vomit. And this is what this evolution is about. And hopefully when I look back 10 years from now, if I don't die between now and then, hopefully I'll look back on the person sitting here now and say, wow, he had a lot of improving to do. I'm glad I'm not that guy. And that's what I hope. And that's why I attend Buddhist teachings. It's not in order for me to, have more stuff to say. It's not for me to be able to sit at a conference and impress folks, which I think is wonderful if it helps beings and is for the sake of other sentient beings. It's not so I can write a book and become famous. It's not clearly so that I can just fill up seats and sell shirts or something, with my name on it or something. It's not for any of that. And I was a singer in a band before, so I know what doing things for that reason are like very well. But yeah, I come here and do this because I've seen the benefit that it has on my own mind. I see it's a little lighter, and I have a little bit of a better ability to handle stress and problems than I did prior to having these teachings. And my ability gets a tiny bit better as the years goes on to not be as concerned about, like those 8 worldly concerns of, having some sort of fame or not having fame, or getting a gift or not getting a gift, or feeling good or not feeling good, or being praised or being not praised. Those things mean a tiny bit less. I'm not saying they're all gone. I don't have renunciation, but they mean a tiny bit less than they did. And we all like to get a gift. We all want to be praised. But if they mean a little less, you feel a little better. And it doesn't seem like it makes sense because you get a gift, you feel better. But when they mean a little less in general, there isn't an anticipation, and then there isn't a fret because of not gaining. There's not an anticipation of getting. There's not this fret of not getting. Oh, I won't. And obviously there's anticipation, but it's not as loud. And when it's not as loud, you can feel better. And I mean, I say when it's not as loud, I feel better. You have to check for your own mind. I can't check your mind. And this isn't something that I'm bragging about. I'm talking about 30 years of work, 30 years of work that I've continued to do because I find it worthwhile. And I find that this idea of being happy all of the time and never ever suffering and being able to help everyone is so beautiful, and it seems more and more feasible. And it seemed more and more feasible as every year that's gone on. And not because like, oh, I'm almost there, just because of the logic and reasoning and the application of these details into my own mind stream, and my checking them and becoming convinced that they actually work, and not convinced that they work because someone told me they do, convinced that they work because I did the experiment on myself. And that's the only one you can do the experiment on. You can't look around the room and say, this isn't working because it's not changing Bob and Sue. You have to see if it's changing you. And if it's changing you, it's working. If you're in a room with 1,000 people and they're not changing, but these teachings are changing you, then there's something that is worthwhile. And this is something that I've seen consistently move me over these years. So yeah, so let's set this motivation to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Let's say I'm attending this teaching to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to achieve the highest state of enlightenment. I want to have perfect love. I want to have perfect wisdom. I want to have perfect power. If I have this power to do anything, and I have skillful means, which is something that the Buddha has perfected as well, if I have this perfect wisdom, if I could be the perfectly wise and know what to say, when to say it, who to say it to, and how to say it, in order to help that anyone, anyone, to be able to be happy and be free from suffering, to be able to have this ultimate concern for others' welfare, and an ability to, because of being omniscient and knowing reality and diversity, to actually do something about it, not just cry in a corner because people are sad and suffering, actually be empowered by it to do something. And we were talking a little bit about that before the class started today, and talking about some lovely things that people had intentions of to do, to try to be of benefit to others, to try to help sentient beings to not have to suffer, to not, be deprived of happiness. And what a beautiful intention to have. And this bodhicitta intention that we talk about is that, according to Arya Nagarjuna in the commentary on the awakening mind, is the highest ideal of the Mahayana. It's the highest kind of mindset that we can get into. This idea that everything that I do is going to be able to become the most reliable guide in the universe, to be of benefit to everyone in the universe. And that's what a Buddha is. It's just, it's someone who is blissfully a helping machine, and just a knower of all things helpful. So let's think how, man, that would be so amazing if I could move closer to someone like that. Look at me, think about I think about who I am, and then I think about someone like that, and I think that, wow, who would become someone like that? Well, I will. Well, whose mind will transform into the omniscience of the Buddha, the wisdom Dharmakaya? My mind will. It's my mind. It's this mind right here. It's not a new, like, one I have to turn in my mind and turn it in to the mind shop and get a new mind. No, it's the same mind that right now just has some dirt all over it. And as soon as I get all of this dirt out of this mind that just keeps on going and has never had a beginning, this mind has no end. So this mind can just keep going nasty and dirty, or this mind can slowly clean up and eventually never be dirty again and never have to experience discomfort again. I mean, these are the facts. We have this mind that we can evolve, and this mind right here, not someone else's mind, not the mind that I go buy at the mind grocery store. The mind that I have right here is the one that transforms. And the emptiness of this mind that's screwed up right now is the same thing that will transform into, will be the same emptiness of intrinsic existence that then becomes the natural Dharmakaya, meaning the emptiness of intrinsic existence of this undefiled mind that is omniscient. So there's no new mind. We're not turning it in. We're fixing our machinery that we have. We don't have to go turn it in. We just have to fix up what we already have. And that's the beauty of these teachings, that we start from where we are right now. We don't have to go out and get, we have to maybe get a cushion to sit on or something, but that's about all we need. And we can start from wherever we're sitting to do this work and start to loosen the tight bonds on our mind. This kind of like, it's kind of wrapped up. Like if you've ever seen like a pallet that has those metal straps around it that keep it all in place, and then it's got all the shrink wrap all over it. You have to, like, I don't know if you've seen pallets, but when stuff comes in off trucks, sometimes they have this, and you have to, in order to get to what's inside, you have to cut all these bands. And sometimes while you're doing the cutting of these bands, they snap and hit you in the face. It's, as Bodhisattva Shantideva said, that going to war is never, ever like, without some kind of problems. when you go to war on your afflictions, it's going to, not always be so fun, but the result will be worth it. So you're, cutting those bands and they're hitting you in the face. But guess what? It's one more that's loosened. And if you keep doing so, and then you go through the trouble of unwrapping this shrink wrap and sometimes trying to cut it off, you get to what you're looking for inside. Whatever was, on that pallet that you had delivered, once you get those bands off it and you get the plastic off it or whatever has been holding it all in, holding it together, keeping it from moving, once it's removed, you can get to what's inside. And the thing is about our mind, it's constricted. It's got these bands around it. It's got the afflictive obstructions that are binding us to cyclic existence, and it's got the obstructions to omniscience that are keeping us from being complete Buddhas. So it's almost like, there's bands around the outside that have to all be cut. And then, there's a freedom. And then the next thing has to be cut to get, those kind of subtle things that are keeping us from seeing our full potential removed from the outside of our mind, or from our mind, in order to then experience what's really there. And that's just this beautiful potential that once it's unbound can flow freely to all beings in the universe and really be reliable to them, and do it so joyfully. So imagine that as our guides. We imagine all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the space in front of us, all of the enlightened beings, imagining Buddha Shakyamuni, any being you consider an enlightened being, imagine them in the space in front of you, looking into your eyes with immense loving kindness. And as Acharya Kamalashila says, that you'd be looking after beings like a mother looks at her only child, wants to spontaneously help her only child. And this is how all the enlightened beings are looking at us, like they're just ready to jump up and help their only child. But for the Buddhas, they have every child in the universe is their child, and they spontaneously help. So it's those kind of beings we're imagining the space in front of us, like Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kensei Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, all of the holy lamas, any of your root gurus, extensive deeds lineage, profound view lineage, lineage of the blessings, the highest yoga tantra deities, performance tantra deities, action tantra deities, the masters, the Nyingma Kagyu Sakya Galup, 35 Buddhas, protector deities, any enlightened beings you consider important in your life. Imagine them in the space in front of you, serving as a role model and serving as the image in front of you of who you will become. You will become the Buddha jewel. You will possess this Dharma jewel. You will be the Sangha jewel. It's just a matter of doing the work that the folks that we're looking in front at, we're imagining, or in the space in front of us did. I mean, this is it. We just haven't done the work to get to there. It's not like we're looking at these heroes we have that are like gods that we will never, ever be like. No. We're imagining them to say, I want to always connect with beings like you so that I can just transform my mind like you did, out of this dirty space that it's in. And when I say dirty, I mean it has afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, and it's keeping me from having my highest amount of potential. It's keeping me, it's constricting me. The afflictive obstructions are constricting me in a way, they're keeping me bound to cyclic existence. The first two noble truths show us how we're bound to cyclic existence. The second two noble truths show us how we're freed from or unbound from cyclic existence. It's the afflictive obstructions that are binding us to cyclic existence. And as soon as we engage in the meditations and the practices and have the wisdom arisen from hearing, contemplation, and meditation, then we can actually be unbound from cyclic existence by practicing the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, to the separation from the afflictive obstructions. So this is when we're looking at this idea of becoming unbound or becoming freed from suffering. This is the idea that we're talking about. And then the idea that not only is our mind constricted and bound and then suffering because of it, even if the suffering is all removed, there's still a subtle constriction that's there that's keeping our mind from flowing freely to all sentient beings. And those are the obstructions to omniscience, that are the subtle imprints or stains of the afflictive obstructions, the kind of inactive seeds, this latencies that are left over, that keep us from being omniscient. And the only way that we can get rid of those is to not only realize emptiness and want to get out of cyclic existence for ourselves, which will get us out of cyclic existence. Those two things, those will allow us to get rid of the afflictive obstructions. But if we want to do the full job and we want the highest amount of reliability and happiness in the universe, we also have to then combine that renunciation and bodhicitta. I'm sorry, renunciation and the correct view of emptiness with bodhicitta. And that is how we then actually are able to get rid of not only the afflictive obstructions, but also those obstructions to omniscience. And we'll go through the bodhisattva grounds and through the process of getting rid of the acquired afflictions and then the innate afflictions, and go through that process. And once we get to the eighth bodhisattva ground, we begin working on the obstructions to omniscience. And then when we cross from the 10th ground, the last moment of the 10th ground, then finished, then we're Buddhas. So it's a matter of going through the stages. We're willing in life to do so many things to be able to get to a goal, hard things. We look at people going through all of the, schooling, 12 years of schooling, and then, okay, now I've got to get an undergraduate degree, which I didn't do these things, but I see it. A lot of my friends and colleagues and so forth, and I have to get this 4 years for this undergraduate, and then maybe master's, and really you need the PhD. And we're willing to put in so much work and, work side jobs and day and night studying, working side jobs to do something that will allow us to have some sort of mundane happiness in this life. But then we won't be able to take anything really we've gained from that work up to being able to work for a living. We won't be able to really take any of that with us. What we'll take with us is the positive and negative seeds that we've placed within our continuum, and the wisdom that is the wisdom that serves as the direct opponent to all of our ignorances. What we'll bring with us is if we've figured out or not that things are impermanent and not permanent. What we'll bring with us is if we figure out or not if things, that we think are happy are actually suffering. Whether we figured out or not, like things that we think are real clean are actually dirty, or whether we figured out the things that we think have some sort of self, whether it's the first level of emptiness, a permanent unitary independent self, or a self with autonomous substantial reality of persons, or, going all the way up, to these understandings of selflessness. We think there is a selfhood, and there's all these levels of selflessness that we don't even begin to think about. And if we think about them, if we start to see we don't have this permanent unitary independent self, we don't have this autonomous substantial reality, we don't have this way of existing independently that's kind of separate from mere imputation, independence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation. There's all of these layers of things that we have to learn. And if we can learn these wisdoms that serve as antidotes to the ignorances, then we actually have done something with our lives that matter, that really, really matter. And when I say really, really matter, it's not to undermine the things that we do on a daily basis to get by and to try to be family members. And this is where we do the work that we're talking about. But if this is the only thing that we're doing, and we're bifurcating to such a degree that we're only willing to be nice to the folks who are in our close proximity, then that afflicted attachment, that afflicted compassion isn't going to be the recipe that we need to then reach our fullest potential in the future. And we won't, as we get older, if we haven't worked on our minds, and I'm seeing this with a lot of folks who haven't worked on their minds, if we haven't worked on our minds, as we get older and older and older, our distractions won't be as easy. We won't have the physical ability to go run around like we used to and go and have fun like we used to and go buy the next thing that we find impressive like we used to when we get onto a fixed income and just go do anything that we want at any given time in order to distract us from our own minds. But if we start now, start doing the work on our minds, every experience that we have will be an experience that's coupled with some sort of contentment. And if there's contentment, it doesn't really matter what's going on. There's an ability to handle anything. And this is the gift that these teachings give. And it's not a gift that these teachings give overnight, but if we work at it and we really, really study and we really see if this stuff makes sense to us. And I assure you, I deal with this logically and have for so many years. I think that you too will discover it makes sense. And if you discover that it makes sense for you, then the next thing you can do is discover the actual thing that the Buddha discovered about impermanent things, and all composite things are impermanent, and all contaminated things are the nature of suffering. All phenomena are the nature of emptiness and selflessness, and transcending sorrow is peace. This will be your knowledge. You can say, yeah, I know that too, because I realized it too. The Buddha won't have a higher realization than you. You will be a Buddha. You'll be a Buddha with the mind you have. So this was what I really wanted to make sure that I spoke about, is that with this mind that we have right here, this is where we do the work from. And this mind right here will become the Buddha's mind. And this mind, this continuum, will go from here, and eventually as we transform it and cleanse it of the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, this same continuum of mind will be a Buddha's mind, and will then have a previous continuum that wasn't, and a future continuum that will only be. So why don't we invite all sentient beings here to be our guest, to enjoy this delightful experience, to enjoy this feast of the Dharma, and imagine that we'll use our techniques that we find in the second volume of the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, and all of the Lamrim teachings about inviting friends, neutrals, and then difficult people, and seeing how our minds react. Hopefully our mind, it's getting easier and easier for us to say, hey, you being difficult isn't a reason for me not to love you. Hey, you being difficult isn't a reason for me not to have compassion for you. Hopefully we're learning that little by little and shedding that awful feeling in our mind that's created, we don't even know is there, when we have this kind of biased attitude. And one of the keys to the bodhisattva's happiness is the unbiased nature of his or her mind. So imagine you bring those beings, hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods here, and they're witnessing the merit field in the space in front of them, looking at them with immense kindness, all of the love that there is in the universe without any bias. Think about just like a mother spontaneously has compassion for her only child. Think about how a mother looks into the eyes of her only child. I love you so much. Think about all the Buddhas looking into our eyes in that same way, because I know when I was with my root Lama, Namgyo Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, and I would look into his eyes, all I would just see is love just pouring out at me, compassion, care pouring out at me. Just this idea of like, I don't need anything from you except for you to do better, pouring out of him. And thank goodness for Namgyo Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche. Now imagine that the space in front of us transforms into Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, where the second turning of the wheel of Dharma occurred. The Heart Sutra, the Perfection of Wisdom teachings, where we saw the 100,000 verse, 20,000 verse, 8,000 verse, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra here, and the short Heart Sutra, and then all the way down to just the letter Ah. These were all simultaneously being given. As we know, the Buddha has this incredible ability to simultaneously do multiple things. And the Buddha simultaneously taught the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras to varying levels of beings' aptitudes, in the greatest level of the 100,000 verse down to just the syllable Ah, which is just a negation in Sanskrit. Negation, and like a non-affirming negative, we say that emptiness is, so it's just a mere negation. So fortunate to have these commentaries like Jayangapi Lodru Rinpoche taught us, to be able to decipher what this is all about and what this means, and how second turning of the wheel of Dharma is where the definitive truth was taught, and where Buddha blessed Venerable Shariputra and Lord Chenrezig to have this conversation about the definitive meaning of everything, the definitive meaning that the Buddha came to teach, that nothing, not the Four Noble Truths, not the Buddha, not Buddha nature, not a giraffe, has intrinsic existence. And everything has an evenness and a peace about it that is its emptiness of intrinsic existence. And somehow or another, we have to decipher what the Buddha meant by that. And a lot of people brush it off or quickly think they know what the Buddha meant by that. And I assure you, if you look at Lama Tsongkhapa's special insight section in the medium and great Lam Rims, and then you look at some of the Janja Rilpi Dorje's tenet systems, and Gonju Jimmy Wampo's tenet systems, and Gonju Janan Sheba's tenet systems, and you start to look at the vastness of what this emptiness is, you will be amazed, and you will see that the depth of what the Buddha came to tell us about all of the things appearing to us and the ways that they're appearing to us incorrectly, the depth of that is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And the layers of ignorance, misconception, and deceptive appearances that are going on 24/7 are things that we can't even imagine. We can't even imagine a subjective existence of things. And we read this Heart Sutra and it makes us think, was the Buddha saying things don't exist? And of course the Buddha wasn't saying things don't exist. The Buddha wasn't crazy. And so many people before that were nihilists. The Buddha didn't come with groundbreaking news that nothing exists. Oh, there's no self. You hear this all the time on the internet. There's no person. The Buddha said there's no person. And this is where it's all dead wrong, because the Buddha didn't say people don't exist. The Buddha gave a bunch of teachings. Clearly, there was someone giving teachings. But the Buddha talked about a real specific mode of existence we've never considered that's real. And everything that we think about the mode of existence of everything around us is deceptive. So this is what we have to decipher. And then within this Heart Sutra, as we've said many times, there's a hidden teaching on the 5 paths, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And we see it connected to this mantra. Like if you were a sharp bodhisattva, maybe you are. I don't know. I'm not a sharp bodhisattva. But if you were a sharp bodhisattva, you could hear this mantra right here. This says Teata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhisoha. You could hear that mantra and you would understand that it referred to the 5 paths that a bodhisattva has to go through and the emptiness of intrinsic existence of the 5 paths the bodhisattva has to go through. So if you are sharp, you could just hear that mantra and say, oh, Teata Om Gate. Gate is the path of accumulation. Gate is the path of preparation. Paragate is the path of seeing. Parasamgati is the path of meditation. Bodhisoha is the path of no more learning. These are the pathways of realizing emptiness that I will go through. This is the pathway to realizing emptiness and realizing it through the various stages of accumulation and preparation in a conceptual manner, and then in a direct manner at the path of seeing and meditation, and then at no more learning, where you're a Buddha and everything is direct. You can directly cognize conventional and ultimate truths simultaneously, whereas up until that point, even on the 10th Bodhisattva ground, you can only conceive of or realize one thing or another, conventional truth or ultimate truth. There isn't a way for the ultimate analysis of a normal being to realize a conventional object. but that's just what the Buddha does somehow or another. His ultimate analysis deals with objects in a non-dualistic way, and then somehow that ultimate mind somehow conceives of conventional truth at simultaneously dualistically. So somehow this amazing being is seeing emptiness directly, which is a non-affirming negative, and nothing else is realized with that realization other than an absence or a non-finding of intrinsic existence. So normally beings who aren't Buddhas can do that once they, see emptiness, get to the Arya level of the path of seeing, as in bodhisattvas in this case. But as soon as they're done seeing emptiness, these Arya beings who aren't Buddhas go right back to things appearing to intrinsically exist. They just don't buy into it the same way you and I do. And it's only the Buddha that somehow crosses the barrier of, screwed upness, crosses the barrier out of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, separates them from his or her continuum, and allows for this like multifunctioning to happen where the eyes can hear and the ears can see and the mind is conceiving ultimate truth, while that ultimate analysis can see things non-dualistically and then conventionally dualistically. Everyone says, oh, the Buddha's in non-duality. No, the Buddha knows you're not him. The Buddha knows he's not a pot. When he's dealing with conventional reality, there's a dualistic situation that's happening. The Buddha isn't just one suddenly with everything in such a way that he doesn't know, has no idea, he's not a pot. That's just not the way it goes on. This is taught a lot, and this is wrong. The Buddha is conceiving ultimate truth, realizing emptiness, and that ultimate analysis becomes an ultimate analysis realizing conventional truth when he is dualistically simultaneously realizing the conventional aspect of the object that he or she is realizing the emptiness of. And they're doing that about everything in the universe at all times, whatever that would be like. So just imagine. I mean, this isn't like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. This is something that's logical and makes sense that it could happen because we have a mind that's in the nature of clear light, unsullied, and these stains in it are adventitious. And you can get rid of ignorance. You've done it your whole life. You didn't know the alphabet, and then you learned the alphabet, as Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche used to say. You've gotten rid of ignorance your whole life. You had the ignorance of the alphabet. You had the ignorance of English language. You had the ignorance of driving a car. You know you can get rid of ignorance. You've proven it to yourself 1,000,000 times going through school. Why couldn't you get rid of this kind of ignorance? And when you study it, you'll find out you have it. That's the cool part. When you study what it is, you'll figure out I've got this. I have this ignorance. Things appear to me to be from their own side. And they appear to me to have some intrinsic attractiveness or some sort of intrinsic unattractiveness. And then I'm off to the races doing attachment and aversion and stuff like that. You'll come to the conclusion that there's something wrong with the way that you're thinking and the way that things are appearing to you. And then it'll be time to do something about it. So I encourage you to gather up the learning, learn what it is, analyze it, and then come to the conclusion, wow, there's something wrong here. Something wrong with the way that I'm thinking. Something wrong with the fact that when things break, I can't believe it. When something breaks, when someone dies, I'm shocked. I can't believe that something impermanent ended when I know that impermanent things come into being, abide, and cease. All of them. But yet I can be so shocked when something happens, when something breaks, when something has a 4-year warranty and it breaks in 2 years. It promised it was permanent for 4 years. Our minds, because of clinging to things that aren't true, suffer so greatly. And what's amazing is that this information isn't mystical. People talk mystically who don't have the real information. But the information Buddha came to give starts out real, not mystical at all. And this is the foundation that we all have to start from. The not mystical place, the not weird place, the place that's logical, uses reasoning, and has study behind it. Okay, Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Imagine we're in Vulturgriya, Rajagriya, Vulturgriya, that was a combination of Rajagriya and Vulture Peak Mountain. Maybe we could rename it. Imagine you're in Rajagriya at Vulture Peak Mountain and all the, the assembly of the beings are there. And imagine Buddha blesses Venerable Shariputra and Chenrezig, and they engage in this show for the benefit of all sentient beings. They engage in this show the Buddha has put on to show us exactly what's wrong with our mind and what could be right with our mind. If we could see that things don't have this intrinsic existence, like no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There's no mind that has intrinsic existence. There's no body that has intrinsic existence. There's no eye, ear, nose, or tongue that has intrinsic existence. If we could come to see this, then we could solve all of our problems. All of them. Every single problem that we have, we can solve if we come to see that things like eyes, nose, ears, and tongues and bodies and minds have no intrinsic existence. So just imagine that you and all sentient beings are receiving this blessing of the ultimate truth. You're hearing the most powerful thing in the universe, and that's the truth. The truth is very, very rarely uttered. And that's why this Heart Sutra, whenever there's obstacles, they recite it a bunch of times. It's used to clear away negativities and obstacles because it's the truth. And the truth is the most powerful thing. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriya at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha monks and a great gathering of the Sangha Bodhisattvas. At that time, Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature, form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Kala jube ne jodamba ne ngushe de jonga yi de do jendru baba lama yi bushinzi nisungandro zala jazelo agasamara jazanra samara vyavasama. Agasamara jajandara samara yave de adon gade gade baragade barazangade badizoa baba gonja sanji gai de me doji she labadaji me badaji she wadaji dragi baji me do bishi sandi sherin gariye zoha gerin jaji jushi wada me do me we jandandra wada tumba junji bonzon zon joji daji de janden da de le jo. And just we'll make the outer mandala offering as a request for a teaching. Normally we would do this right in the beginning, but as you know, I like to give a lot of introduction and like to explain everything that we're doing. And I think that that's helpful and beneficial in terms of learning how to set a motivation, learning how to imagine beings in your mind, learning how to imagine the merit field. I don't think that we can go over this too many times. So I hope that it's of some benefit to you. This is a request for teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. So we've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, which we won't look at very much this evening. But we've gotten to the section on the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, we learn that there's aspiring bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. And we're right now learning how to get aspiring bodhicitta, because aspiring bodhicitta is the foundation necessary for one to then have engaged bodhicitta. And when we look at what the line of demarcation is for the prasangika vehicle, the second moment of aspiring bodhicitta becomes engaged bodhicitta. And for the other schools and the more commonly expressed points, and even masters in the higher traditions teach it with this express point, that it's when you take the bodhisattva vow, when you have aspiring bodhicitta, you become a bodhisattva. And then when you take the bodhisattva vow, then you have engaged bodhicitta. But in the prasangika view, it's the second moment of actual bodhicitta, the spontaneous bodhicitta that occurs when you actually have aspiring bodhicitta. That next moment becomes an engaged bodhicitta. So we'll have to sort it out and look at the various texts. Acharya Kamalashila's text states that the presence of the vow is the demarcation. And whereas in Bodhisattva Shantideva's text, he defines it as planning to go and going. And the argument is that the Bodhisattva gets this desire to go, and then you just go in the next moment. So it's a line of demarcation, but we're learning how to get aspiring bodhicitta, and we'll just talk for another 5 minutes or so about that. Because we're on this line that says, I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother has fallen into, and grant me then to practice the wish for its enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. So we find loaded within this so many things that we need to know about. And we've been looking at the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment with a magnifying glass. And we looked at equanimity, about friends, enemies, and neutrals, and became very clear on what that is, and very clear that we need to have this kind of equal idea, non-biased idea, to be open-minded in relation to all beings in terms of willingness to benefit. And then we came to the conclusion that we recognize sentient beings as our mother, all sentient beings as our mother, remember their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and set up this foundation that's necessary for the development of the attitude to be intent on others' welfare, as it says in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise in the stage of the path to enlightenment outline. So there's a foundation that gets set up with the precept of equanimity and the 3 steps of recognizing sentient beings as their mother, remembering their kindness, and wishing to repay their kindness. A solid foundation is set up to where we find sentient beings as lovable, and it turns our mind into being able to see sentient beings as lovable, which becomes the next step, seeing beings with love in the light of seeing. I like to say love through the force of attraction. There's so many different translations now, but I like love through the force of attraction. And then we developed this idea of great compassion. So we started reading about the cultivation of compassion. And it's something jumped out at me the other day. And we read the first two paragraphs. It's on page 44, volume 2 of the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment. And we talked about Acharya Kamalashila and who Acharya Kamalashila was. And we talked about the great debate with Master Hashan and so forth. So we won't get into that really this evening. We talked about, the basic time frame, 8th century, in the monasteries, Sangye monastery being made in Tibet, and Acharya Chandrarashita, the great abbot, coming to Tibet, and Master Padmasambhava, and so forth. So we talked about the history, so I won't go over that. And then we talked about the object of compassion is living beings who experience among the 3 types of suffering. And then we talked about the actual subjective aspect, is how nice it would be if they were free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. I will be the cause for them to be free from suffering. And then building that up towards more and more beings. So I just wanted to read this one paragraph, actually one, and there's another paragraph with 2 lines after it that I find interesting. So the way to cultivate compassion is as follows. Consider how these living beings, your mothers, experience general and specific sufferings after falling into cyclic existence. I explained these sufferings earlier, Lama Tsongkhapa says. So he says, I shouldn't need to, because you know this. You're experts on the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, the 3 sufferings. You're all experts on suffering, and you all have renunciation and definitely want to get out of cyclic existence, because it would be illogical for you not to. So because you have all of this foundation and you guys are all ready to go to become bodhisattvas, you don't need the mental bases, because you already have them. Because I know you know what those sufferings are, and I know you've meditated on them enough to know your own current state. So it says, I've explained these sufferings earlier, that you're going to need to know exactly what they are to meditate on other sufferings, to know what you're trying to get beings out of, to know what you're trying to help them do. You need to know their current state, and you learned it by learning your current state, because we're thrust again and again and again into all kinds of current states that have different appearances, and some have hair on them and horns, and some talk nice, some don't talk nice, but we're forced. They're forced. What are they forced into? The same thing I'm forced into. So there's just an equivalency that it starts with this equivalency, and then it ends with you caring more about what they need than what you need. Moreover, if you have developed an awareness of your own, so Lama Tsongkhapa says, okay, yeah, I've talked about this earlier, but let me just say something else. Moreover, if you have developed an awareness of your own general and specific sufferings by training in the path of a person of medium capacity, you will assess your own situation and cultivate compassion towards others. By following this method, you will easily generate compassion. Considering your own suffering creates the determination to be free. Determination to be free is renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge. Nejong Itsampa in Tibetan. So the desire to definitely emerge, the determination to be free. So when you think about your own suffering, you'll develop renunciation. So here, it's basically saying that renunciation is the foundation for this practice. We think, oh, this renunciation is such a small idea. I'm going to be a bodhisattva. But renunciation, it says here, is the foundation for you to be able to become a bodhisattva. And then when we look at clearing up misconceptions in this text, it says that there's an idea out there that bodhisattvas don't have renunciation, and they actually have more renunciation than anyone. They actually think about more suffering than anyone because they're thinking about your suffering too, not just theirs. Innumerable sufferings the bodhisattva is learning about and thinking about and wants to be out of. So thinking about others' suffering creates compassion. However, if you do not first consider your own suffering, you will not reach the key point of the practice. The key point of the practice, you will not reach it. These are simple instructions of how to meditate. This is the part I found so just mind-blowing. We think meditate, we just have to clear our minds or go to a mountain or sit by a waterfall and just make it as pleasant as possible. Get some incense going. Those are good. I like the way those smell when I sit and calm my mind down, when I just chill out. And that's my meditation. And my meditation is just to make me feel good while I'm doing it because I need to relax. And then I like to think of myself as like a deity. And I think of myself sending out all these light rays as a deity to help beings. But while you're doing that, those practices are super high practices. This resting and the awareness of your mind, this idea of wanting to help people through visioning yourself as a deity. This all has to come from knowing your current state, which isn't a deity, which is smells when you don't wash, even though you think you're super clean. And that thing, that significant, that person of the opposite sex, same sex, whatever you're attracted to, that you find is so clean, also stinks. And that they're going to die just like you're going to die, right? So we're understanding from our current state, your own state. And this is meditation. Meditation isn't mountaintop imagination. Meditation is looking at your current state and saying, oh, this doesn't make any sense for me to stick around this. What do I have to do to get out? And then when you learn what you have to do to get out, you go, huh, everyone around me doesn't know this. And that's the evolution that takes place. And it says intelligent persons should meditate in detail on the 110 sufferings that are observed with compassion. These are explained in the Bodhisattva levels. So this is a text by Arya Asanga called the Bodhisattva Bhumis, and it talks about 2 divisions of 55 and the 110 types of suffering. The book's actually over there. As I said in a class before, I almost was going to read them all to you, but I figured, all right, I'll save you that, and you can get the Bodhisattva Bhumis text translated beautifully by Art Engel, the great Lotsawa Art Engel, and you can then learn more about your current state so that you'll know the problem that everyone else has, and then you'll know how to help them. And that's what the name of the game is here. It's about becoming the most helpful person in the world, in the universe, because that's how you can become the happiest person in the universe. Wow. We're really fortunate to have these teachings, and I hope that you apply them to your life. This is only for that sake. As I said before, I don't go to teachings every single day of my life in order to just learn more, to be able to say cool things. It's in order to change my mind, in order to, if suddenly everything is taken away from me and I'm all alone and I have nothing, and maybe I have to fend for myself, am I able to be content? Everybody wants to be, Jetson Milarepa, but Jetson Milarepa got to where Jetson Milarepa was by putting in an immense amount of work on himself. And I see these examples like Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, who put an immense amount of work day and night in on himself. And I saw the result, not in a book, sitting right here, this close to me, and sometimes this close to me when I would do his dialysis. We were this far from each other's noses, and he was looking into my eye with a contentment while I was hooking him up to a machine to clean his blood because his kidneys had zero function in a state that doctors said had to be painful the whole time, when he only expressed that it wasn't to us and smiled and looked into my eyes like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? I'll do anything for you. Never, oh, I need something money from you or something. Never this feeling I ever had around my teacher. I always had, all I want from you is you to be happy and to be free from suffering. And when you experience a being like this, you just naturally want to be like them. And they got like that somehow. That warrior, calm warrior, Kensugeshe Wandak, evolved through a real rigorous process. And I'm grateful we have the same opportunity to do so ourselves. Let's do some wrap up here, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to speak about these topics and continue to evolve. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the core continent, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva. Om Benzasata Samaya Minabalaya Benzasata Zeno Vajijda. Tilameva Vasu Dagayameva Vasu Bagayameva Anuragmeva Zavasini Braja Zavakama Suchame Gitam Shi Ankuro Hom Hao. Bhagavan Zavata Gata Benzamame Munga Benzabava Samaya Zava Om Ve. May we be protected by Palden Lamo, the wrathful emanation of Tara, full of love, strong love and compassion for all of us. Jorama 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 Dunjo Galaraja Morama Jadaja Dunjo Rilong. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traversed 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. In all my lives, may I never be apart from my perfect gurus. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings. All powerful Chen Rezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara's end. A prayer of supplication for Namgyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms as the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ah Om Om Ah Om Om Ah Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts in crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody, for your kind listening, and we'll see you next time. And please put these teachings into your life so you can be happier. Take care. And you'll make the people around you, as Geshe Dorje Damdula said in the recent course, less miserable. Take care.